Okay, so today, obviously, our big topic is pick a side, and that's a term um, that we use a ton in our women's national team gym. And the background of that, the idea is that we want to give our athletes tools to adjust to really tough serves. Okay, so um, I know even for myself, I grew up being coached into getting behind the ball, getting the ball right in our midline, um, really moving our feet. And that's great to some point, but I think we've evolved a little bit. Okay. So it's not to say that's wrong. There's going to be some serves that end up on our midline. Okay. So we're just approaching it. The philosophy is to give tools to our players. So I think if we can approach it like that, that's number one going to help us be better coaches because we're not going to put our players in a box so much. So I would encourage you or challenge you to think of it that way is can we give them tools? And one of the ways we can do that is to just get the ball slightly off our midline. And we're going to talk about what exactly that means in the next slide here. And so that is the biggest thing about picking a side. And in general, it's going to allow us to adjust to late serves. Late meaning the ball moves late in its flight path. And we're just trying to do that as often as possible, fully knowing, coaches, fully knowing that the ball can end up on our midline, right? Serves move. We're not perfect in our read all the time, but in general, we're just trying to get that serve slightly off our midline, and we're going to talk about why and how we adjust to serves. Okay, so I thought it'd be a good idea to just kind of attack a couple questions that I get asked often. And one of the things that I get asked a lot is, well, if you're asking people or players to pick a side, then they don't want to move their feet, or you don't have to move your feet, and that looks really lazy. Okay, we're going to talk about how the lower body and the upper body move at the same time, but the truth is we still have to move our feet a little bit. Okay, so we'll talk about that. And I think to put that comment into context in kind of a lighter way, one of our outside hitters has shared with me in the past where uh, she sometimes feel like she's not doing too much. And she came from a background where she had to do a lot. And so making that adjustment to actually do less was really hard for her and actually uncomfortable. But she slowly kind of caught up to that philosophy. And as a coach, I know a lot of coaches that have come up to me and say like, well, that looks lazy. Well, the reality is the serve is coming really fast. Okay. So we're just trying to make simple moves over time. And if perhaps it comes off lazy to you, like the truth is it's not, it's a hard skill in general. Okay. So I've definitely heard comments like that and I welcome them all. And I'm just trying to bring a little bit of, not clarity per se, but just some other angles to look at our philosophy. Okay. Um, Another thing that we're gonna talk about is just clarifying what midline for our terminology. Okay, so what we're gonna talk about in this session, the midline is this yellow line that I have on Mo's chest. Okay, so we're not referring to the body line as the midline. So for us, it's a little more specific if you see that line. And so I think that's one of the first questions that will help clarify the whole philosophy is we just want to get that serve slightly off to the side. It's a couple inches off this yellow line, okay? And a lot of people consider the body line as midline, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But for the sake of this session and when we talk about how we're gonna teach it, I am talking about the midline as this yellow line, okay? So I think that's probably gonna help clear up a few questions. And so I wanted to create that graphic right there and just show you so that we're clear. And then the other thing, guys, is the cool thing about this format, and thanks to everyone that's joining. It's our first one. is you'll get to ask some questions later. Okay, so I'm gonna try to adjust a couple in the presentation, but write them down and feel free to put them in the question and answer bowl, I guess is what it's called, at the bottom, because we definitely want to be interactive and engaging, and so please feel free to ask them. And it's a safe space here. We're open to any type of question, no dumb questions or embarrassing ones. And I think the last question, or I don't want to call them myths because I want to respect what people are saying, but the last question I get a lot is when coaches are coaching younger athletes, um, they don't they don't think that their young players are strong enough to pass the ball way outside their body. And my answer to that, and just trying to open um the communication lines, is that, we're not asking a person or a player to be so far outside their body consistently. That might happen, but ideally we still want to move our feet and track that ball, so that we're not in a really vulnerable position, which is way off your body line or way far from your body. So I totally get that. We've all coached those young 10, 11, 12 year olds that they look like you can push them over with your finger. But the truth is, the game presents itself in a way that we have to give some tools to them. And so holding that finish, we're going to talk about that later too. And also building that core, a core is a big part of volleyball. And so I would almost challenge you back and say, I think they're capable, and I think we can encourage some other parts of their skill and their game to help with just being comfortable passing, pretty far from the body if they have to. Okay. And then how do we get here? You might be thinking, okay, this is great, Tama, and thanks for sharing that, but like, how do I get here? And so I um yeah, let's back up a little bit. And it starts with seeing and looking at the right thing. I played for Jim McLaughlin, and we often talk about the difference between looking and seeing. And there's, reading the setter, and there's actually understanding what the setter is doing. There's looking at the server contact and actually understanding what she's doing with the contact of her serve. So in terms of serve receivers, we have to, as coaches, help our players um, with their eyes, and we need to tell them exactly where to look if they don't already know. And so what I mean by that is we need to see the server's contact. Okay. Um, we need to see them uh, hit the ball, contact the ball in relation into space. And that's going to help a lot with just the next phase of passing. Okay. So I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen so that I can show you a few things with my body. Okay, so coaches, we want to see server contact, okay? So we want to see the ball hit the hand. We want to look at this little area. If I was to draw a square of like where I hit the ball, we want to see this space in relation to their hand, their body. And when we see that contact, okay, as soon as it hits the hand, we want to determine if that serve in relation to my body, the passer, if it's left or right. Okay. So I want to make that differentiation as soon as I can. And the left or right part comes from this contact point. So just right in the middle of my hand, you're gonna see that ball. And if you kind of envision a server serving at you while I'm talking to you, it's gonna make a little more sense. Okay. So you're gonna see contact and you want to go left or right. Okay, and in your mind, your brain, eyes are processing with your brain left or right. Okay, great. So now, as soon as I know that, I want my arms, okay, and my lower body to start tracking that serve. So with your arms, your platform, you're gonna get your arms out and get them as close to the line as possible. Okay, and your feet are gonna have to move at the same time. You're gonna have to start shuffling. Okay, so going backwards, it's going to help the pick a side part is good eye work. Okay. So I am gonna go back to our slide here. Um, Making an early decision. So when you are seeing this contact, you want to determine left or right, and then you're gonna see depth. So I know, um, easier said than done. A lot of coaches like, Tama, my players can't see the ball dropping, or they can't really tell it's rising. Okay, so we got to get a ton of reps, and we got to talk our players through that contact. Okay, so an early decision, left or right, is great, and then depth as it comes to us. All right, and then I touched upon the tracking part. It's getting our arms, our platform in line with that serve. Okay, and then according according to that speed of the serve, according to how I shuffle, I need to get my platform out, and I want to take the ball either on the left or the right side of my midline. Okay, so if you look at the screen, Jay here, she's got that slightly off her midline. Kelsey here, she's a little bit off the midline too on the left, and we're just trying our hardest to create some really good angles with our shoulders. Okay, so this is like the early part still. We're tracking, we're doing all this hard work, okay? And with our lower body, we're shuffling. Okay, so now I am gonna stop sharing this PowerPoint, but now I'm gonna load up a clip, coaches, and you're gonna watch Kelsey. And this is actually pretty cool. This is from our friendlies that were just this past weekend. And as we've all spent a lot of time on Zoom, I'm going to play this about 5 times because in case the quality isn't good. But you're going to watch on the far side in zone 1, Kelsey Robinson. Now, I purposely picked this clip because it's a little on the extreme side. It's a really good server from Turkey, and she's going to our zone 1, and we know that we have to cut this serve off. We have to pick a side. We have to keep this ball off the net. So that's part of our philosophy. And just watch Kelsey here. Okay, so that's a really good pass, coaches. This serve is coming in hot. Okay, so part of our philosophy that, we're fortunate enough that we can use her as an example now. But she's trained a lot, and so she's pretty comfortable with this move. And if she were to try to shuffle behind this ball, if that serve were to rise just 2 inches or 3 inches, this could end up hitting her in the bicep or like almost by her neck. And so she does a really good tracking. You can see her platform is out. I'm going to keep playing it as I talk just to make sure you all can see this example. Okay, so it's on the side. She's creating a nice angle with her shoulders. We call that tilt. Okay, so she's just working hard. Another phrase that we use, coaches, is get out of the way, get our body out of the way. So that's also part of picking the side. Okay, so one more time, we're trying to see it off our hand. We're tracking that flight of the ball. We're getting our feet going and our arms at the same time. And if one thing that you'll notice is just how strong our core and our base have to be when we're making moves like this. So you might come across some athletes where the intent is there, but the ball pushes them around, pushes them back, or they're not able to hold that tilt or their shoulders really well. But ask them, double check in with them. Hey, hold that. And it's going to take your core. It's going to take some good balance with your feet. And we can make some really good angles when we have to cover a lot of space. Okay, so that's one example. While I'm chatting here, I'm going to try to give you another example of Justine. Okay, so let me try to share again. Here we go. Let's see if we did it right. Okay. All right, so Justine is also in zone 1, and I also picked this clip because Justine is fighting a really good serve off again. So, Turkey number 7, outside hitter, Baldine, really good server, nice and flat, and we know that in general they can come cross body a lot. So our passer in zone 1, we remind them to pick a side and hold. Okay, so we're getting good look off the server's hand, and then Jay tracks it to her. She picks left early. My guess is since it was in the seam, this ball was probably a lot easier to pick left. Okay, and then she's tracking the heck out of it. For those of you who are wondering what that girl is doing running in the back, we're in a rotation 1 in a run around. So Annie's our left-handed opposite, and she's gonna go hit a red in this situation. Okay, so again, she's picking the side, and then with her shoulders, okay, they're tilted with a really nice angle. She's off the midline. And most importantly, this position allows her to adjust to the serve. And if you watch her move, she actually has to adjust because it moves late, and she finishes up and high and forward. And we refer to this kind of position a lot in our gym as to fighting it off. Okay, so she holds. That's a good serve. It's moving. But this is a really good example of picking a side. And again, I'm fully aware that we've trained this moves. I know it looks really simple, and our eye work's really good, and we're striving to continue to get better coaches, but we really like this position and this philosophy to pass some really tough serves. So I think sometimes I get the privilege to pull up these really good clips, right? And what we don't see is how long it took for Jay and Kelsey to train this and get really good at this. But this is kind of our, I wouldn't say end goal, but kind of when we can pick a side and fight off really good serves. Okay, so the last thing is just we need to hold our finish. Okay, so we want to hold with our upper body. We want to hold with our lower body if we can. Is it always possible? Definitely not. Definitely not. And the holding, our finish, gives us some accuracy. Okay, if you have a pretty good angle out, the ball's going to stay in front of you. If you don't hold, your platform might break. Your angle might change, and that might kick the ball up or to the side. Okay, so this is all. It's all encompassing with our theme of picking a side. Okay, so this is how we get to that point. Is we need to have these things in place, and of course, we're going to track the heck out of each serve as best as we can, right? So I think, in general, that's kind of our philosophy, and we strive to do it often. And we know, if someone serves pretty easy at us, coaches, or we get a free ball, you can pass the ball however you want to pass it because you're going to have command on it. You're going to have control over it. Okay. So, part of this pick a side thing is to give your players tools to fight off really good fast serves, serves that move a lot. And I know maybe some of you might be playing with Mikasa and some of you may not, but our Mikasa ball moves a ton. But I've watched a lot of college matches and a few high school and lower, and kids have arms, and so you might think, oh, we don't get served as fast as you do, Tama, at Team USA. I'm like, I get that the top speed is not the same, but it's relative to the skill, and so that's maybe one thing I would throw at you, and you can definitely disagree, but I would think more than ever, it's giving them tools to find solutions. And so that's one thing we just remind our athletes of is, volleyball is just about finding some really good solutions. And we think getting that ball just slightly off our midline and holding our finish is gonna be a pretty good start, and then we keep working from there. So